Hello, Orbis here, and today I'm going to be going through every album by Fleetwood Mac and saying my favourite song from each album. Now, Fleetwood Mac are one of my favourite bands, so I wanted to do some kind of video about them. I considered doing a ranking every song like I did with the Beatles, but I don't feel confident enough in doing that with all of their songs. I think I know most of their catalogue pretty well, but there are some blind spots in there. So one day I'll do that, but it would be quite the task because they have a lot of albums. I also considered doing like a top 10, top 20, top 30, whatever favorite songs by them. But Fleetwood Mac are one of the hardest bands to do a list like that with, because not just because they have so many albums, but because they change so much over the course of their career, to the point that I think of different eras almost as if they're like different bands. You know, the band that made Then Play On and the band that made Rumours, they might have the same name, but they're different bands really. So yeah. Instead, I'm just going to be naming my favourite song from each album, which I feel even the albums I don't know as well, I can at least say there's at least one song that I know, that I know and I like. So we'll just get started. So the first Fleetwood Mac album, which is just called Fleetwood Mac, which is obviously John McVie, Mick Fleetwood, and you have Peter Green and Jeremy Spencer. Peter Green obviously being the main founding member, and Jeremy Spencer being primarily a slide player. That the thing about Jeremy Spencer is his songs are very not original. His whole thing is pretty much he mainly does like parodies of other artists. So with the first Fleetwood Mac album, I guess the first two Fleetwood Mac albums, he's pretty much just always doing an Elmore James impression, and if not an Elmore James impression, then some other blues artist impression. So I like Jeremy Spencer's songs, but I think Peter Green's are a lot better. So my favourite song from the first album I've put as The World Keep On Turning, which is just easily one of the best songs on the album. A lot of the album is quite derivative of blues, even Peter Green's songs, but I think this is one of the exceptions. And another song I considered from the album was I Loved Another Woman, which is also fantastic. I think what stops me from putting it as my favourite is that it's kind of like an early version of Black Magic Woman. Black Magic Woman is like very similar to this song, but it is a bit better. So yeah, World Keep On Turning is my favourite song from that first album. Now the second album, Mr. Wonderful, I think is a bit of a step down from the first album. The main thing that's different about it, it's still very bluesy, but it also has like a horn section. But I don't know, the album feels even more derivative, and there aren't any like strong highlights like with the first album. Nothing to the level of World Keep On Turning or I Loved Another Woman. If I had to pick a favourite, then the one I've put down is Love That Burns. It's got a nice vibe to it. But I don't really listen to Mr. Wonderful very often because it's a similar style to the first album, and I like the first album better, so I'm more likely to listen to the first album. Anyway, next is Then Play On, which is the best album out of the Peter Green era, in my opinion. There are no Jeremy Spencer songs on it. It's just Peter Green and Danny Cohen, who had just joined the band. And I think that was the right decision. This album's amazing, and I think it's one of the best albums Fleetwood Mac ever did. Like all eras considered, it's very hard to pick a favourite. I only counted the original track listing because I know the track listing changed a lot. But based on the original track listing, I just went with Rattlesnake Shake, which is one of the best songs from this era. The live versions are really good as well because they go on for so long. I think there are versions that go on for like 20 minutes. There are many other amazing songs in the album I could have picked, like Closing My Eyes or Crying or any of the instrumentals. It's an amazing album. But unfortunately, Peter Green would leave the band after this album, and I like to speculate about what Fleetwood Mac would have done if Peter Green had stayed in the band. What else they could have done? I think if the lineup stayed like that for the rest of the 70s, I think they could have been one of the best 70s rock bands ever. But alas, that was not to be. So the next album, Kiln House, which is full of, it's just Danny Kerwin and Jeremy Spencer songs. And I think Danny Kerwin's songs on Kiln House very much outshine Jeremy Spencer's, because Jeremy Spencer, instead of doing a blues impressions parodies, he decided to do 50s rock and roll Buddy Holly type parodies. I like them, but Danny Kerwin's songs are way better. The best song on the album is easily Station Man. I think this is one of the best songs that Fleetwood Mac ever did, and there's a reason that the other eras of the band, even the Buckingham Nicks era, played this song in their sets, in their live shows still. It's just amazing. But I easily could have picked any other Danny Kerwin songs from this album, like Jewel Eyed Judy or Tell Me All the Things You Do. So after this album, Jeremy Spencer left, boo-hoo, and Christine McVie became an official member. She had been playing on their albums for a while. I think she first started on Mr. Wonderful. She playing keyboards, and she was then playing on in Kiln House, and then around Kiln House she became an official member. And also she actually did the artwork for Kiln House. And also Bob Welch joined, who is probably one of the most underappreciated but important members and songwriters that had been in Fleetwood Mac, I think. The albums that he's on are very underrated and underappreciated. So Future Games is really good. I think this is the first Fleetwood Mac studio album with 3 songwriters/singers, and the variety is great because you're kind of getting the best songs of each of them. And I would say Danny Kerwin, Bob Welch and Christine McVie are very much on the same level in terms of their songwriting. But out of the 3 of them, with this album, I think Danny Kerwin does shine the most. Woman of 1,000 Years is amazing, and Sometimes as well. But the best song on the album I've put as Sands of Time, which is just an amazing song. But I easily could have gone with any of Bob Welch's or Christine McVie's songs. Next up is Bare Trees, which I think is even better than Future Games, and is probably one of the best. Yeah, I don't know. I think Bare Trees is amazing. And I think it's a shame that this lineup of the band only did 2 albums, the lineup of Danny Kerwin, Christine McVie and Bob Welch. This is probably the 3rd best lineup that Fleetwood Mac ever had. And Bare Trees is the proof. Even if they had just done Bare Trees, it's great. So the best song on the album I put as Sentimental Lady, which is one of the best Bob Welch songs. I think he redid the song after he left Fleetwood Mac, but this version is definitely the best one. I think it was released as a single, but I don't think it did anything, which is a shame because it's one of the best Fleetwood Mac songs, full stop. So. And I heavily considered "Spare Me a Little of Your Love." That's also one of Christine McVie's best songs. Okay, next up is Penguin. So there was a pretty big lineup change here. Danny Kerwin left and 2 members joined to replace him. Bob Weston on guitar and I'm going to forget his name now, Dave Walker. So this album, it's a bit of a step down from the last album in my opinion. It's nice. It's kind of nice that it has such a variety of songwriters and singers on it, but it doesn't quite reach the heights of the last couple albums. And I think out of all the songwriters, I think Christine McVie has the best songs on here. Dissatisfied is great, and the first track, Remember Me, I think it's called. This is one of the albums I don't really go back to that much. It has some decent songs on it, but there are better. There are better albums from this era. Yeah, Remember Me. But the best song on the album I put as Did You Ever Love Me, which is just a great song. I like the I forget what it's called, the instrument that's like it makes you think of a beach. Yeah. So next up is Mystery to Me, which is a really good album, a big step up from Penguin. Dave Walker left because apparently he didn't suit the sound of the band or whatever, which is funny because that means that in total Dave Walker sings on 2 Fleetwood Mac songs, one of which is a cover, so he's only ever written 1 Fleetwood Mac song. So Mystery to Me, really good. Some contenders would be the opener Emerald Eyes, which is fantastic, and the Christine McVie song Why is amazing. But in the end I went with, it was no question really, Hypnotized is a fantastic song, really probably in my top 10 favourite Fleetwood Mac songs. It's amazing. The next up is the album Heroes Are Hard to Find. Bob Weston had left the band by this point because, well, no, he didn't leave. He was fired because he slept with Mick Fleetwood's wife. So classic Fleetwood Mac drama right there. So I think this is one of the few albums where the band is just a 4-piece. It's Christine McVie, Bob Welch, and of course Mick Fleetwood and John McVie. And it's okay, but it's a step down from Mystery to Me in my opinion. The best track I've put as the title track, Heroes Are Hard to Find, which is great. I think the title of the song is fitting for this point because for a while I think Fleetwood Mac had been searching for their heroes, and it wouldn't be long after this album that those heroes would appear. So next up is the second Fleetwood Mac album that is called Fleetwood Mac, and obviously this is when Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham joined the band, and they were probably one of the best things, arguably the best thing that happened to Fleetwood Mac ever. It brought them to huge success and some of the best albums and songs. So the first album they did, the White Album, as is very confusing because its name is Fleetwood Mac, so it's self-titled, which is already confusing because there's another Fleetwood Mac album that's self-titled. So instead people call it the White Album to distinguish it from the other Fleetwood Mac album. But that's also confusing because obviously there's the White Album by the Beatles. So I never know what to even call this album. Some people just call it the first Fleetwood Mac album because some people don't even know about the eras before this album. Anyway, this album's amazing. It's maybe not quite as good as Rumours, but it's Buckingham Nicks. They were amazing songwriters already. I mean, if you haven't heard the Buckingham Nicks album, you definitely should, because you can see that by the time they joined Fleetwood Mac, they were already top class songwriters. So the best song on the album I've put as Rhiannon, which is fantastic. I could have gone with I'm So Afraid, Say You Love Me, Monday Morning. It's full of amazing songs. Okay, next up is Rumours, which is obviously the most popular and highly rated album. And I went with Dreams as the best song. Pretty generic answer, but I think this is the top tier song. Probably one of the best songs ever written. And it's not just written well, but the production is amazing as well, especially that guitar sound. But I could have gone with almost any song on this album, because this album is full of top just five star tracks. You know, Go Your Own Way, The Change, Secondhand News, I Don't Want to Know, Gold Dust Woman, Don't Stop, You Make Loving Fun. It's just, yeah, so many amazing songs on the album. Okay, so next up is Tusk, which follow up to Rumours, and it was a somewhat polarizing album at the time, but I absolutely love it. It's kind of hard to pick a favourite song because it's a very long album. It's a double album. Songs like Sarah, Save Me a Place, Tusk, Brown Eyes. There are loads of amazing songs. Sisters of the Moon. But I went with Think About Me, which is one of the most poppier songs on the album, which is why it was one of the bigger hits of the album. It's kind of like Don't Stop Part 2, because you've got Lindsey Buckingham and Christine McVie kind of swapping lead vocals, and yeah, it's fantastic. So next up is Mirage, which I think is kind of an underrated album. I think it's got a lot of great songs on it, like Love in Store, and obviously Gypsy, the most popular song on the album, and I could have put that as my best. And I definitely could see it as the best song on the album, but I went with Oh Diane. I think it's just because I've been listening to it a lot recently. It's very catchy. So next is Tango in the Night, which technically is the last Fleetwood Mac album with the Rumours lineup. And this has some of the biggest hits on it, like Everywhere, Little Lies, Seven Wonders, Big Love. And I think, in my opinion, I think Christine McVie has the best songs on this album. She had the biggest hits on the album, Little Lies and Everywhere. But also, the track Isn't It Midnight, I think, is also incredible, which I was very tempted to put as the best song on the album, but in the end I went with Little Lies. So, yeah. Next up is Behind the Mask, which is an album I don't really listen to it very often. The departure of Lindsey Buckingham was a huge blow to the band. Obviously, the band has released good music without Lindsey Buckingham before, but that was a long time ago. And unfortunately, the new members, which I don't even remember the names of, I think one of them, Rick Vito and Billy Brunette, I think. I don't really listen to this album very often. I think Christine McVie once again has the best songs on the album. And if I had to pick a favourite, I would go with Sky's the Limit, I think. And I think this is where, with albums like these, this is where I start to appreciate Christine McVie even more. I think out of all the songwriters that have been in the band, she might be the one that was not the most consistent, but the most reliable. She always had good songs, even on the worst albums. She never missed. And that is the case with the next album afterwards, Time, which is probably the worst Fleetwood Mac album. And I'm not going to go into it. But the best song is definitely I Do, which is the single, and it's pretty good, yeah. Compared to the rest of the album, it's great. Next is the last Fleetwood Mac album, Say You Will, released I think in 2003, and it's a pretty good album with some great songs on it. Doesn't quite live up to the peak of the Buckingham and its era. If I had to pick a best song, the one I picked is Smile at You, which originated from the Mirage sessions. And this version doesn't quite live up to that version, which God knows how that track didn't make it onto that album. I think I read somewhere that Lindsey Buckingham didn't want it on the album because she got a different guitarist to play on it. I don't know. But if that had been on the album, that would have been one of the best, easily. I would have been tempted by the track Say Goodbye as the best song on Say You Will, but they kind of ruined the song. And the live versions are really good. And if the album version sounded like the live version, it might have been one of the best Fleetwood Mac songs ever. But they ruined it because on the album version, for some reason they decided to artificially speed it up. And it sounds awful. I hate it. They took what would have been one of the best songs of the album and they just ruined it. And it always annoys me. I always have to skip it because it's just pisses me off. So there you go. That was my favourite song on every Fleetwood Mac album. Let me know if you enjoyed and if you would like me to do any more Fleetwood Mac related videos. Not that it matters because I definitely will, because I love talking about Fleetwood Mac. They have a very interesting history. Subscribe if you want to see more. Like the video if you liked it, and that's all I have to say. So take care, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.